Rabbi Chaim Brisk said the name of Rabbi Yeshua Levi. The Torah tells us about Moshe Rabbeinu, alav shalom, Moses. He prayed very hard to be able to enter the Eretz Israel, and God said to him, Al tosef daber elai od, do not repeat your prayer. We learned yesterday, I'm going to learn today, about certain phrases in the Torah that repeat itself. For example, the Torah said, Im amor yomar ha'eved. Someone have a Hebrew servant, and the servant after 6 years, instead of being released, he said, I want to stay. And the Torah said, Ve'im amor yomar, if he said it and he repeats it. Repeating is basically the emphasizing that that's what he wished to. So the idea is, Moshe Rabbeinu alav shalom, Moses, he said, he was praying hard, and God in a way said to him, I made a decision to have you stay here and not to enter. Do not repeat, Al tosef daber elai, because then you change the status for my previous decisions. So today we're going to speak about kinyanim, a matter of acquisitions, not only in a servant, but also kinyan chazaka, different form of acquisitions and transactions between parties. We're also going to speak about convert in a sense of estate that left after the person passed who converted to Judaism, how you treated the aftermath. Especially if he owes money. For example, if a convert borrow money and he have also a collateral, how you treated the collateral and the money that the convert borrows. So we are on page 22, 6 lines from the top of the page. Tanu Rabbanan. Tanu Rabbanan, im amor yomar Ad sheyomar v'yishne. The Meiri explains, when the servant said after 6 years, the Hebrew servant, I love my master, I love to stay in slavery, I love to be part of that. It reminds me the story, the American history, a right immediate post-emancipation. So you read story of people who went out of jail and they complain about the new life, they want to be back in their mindset, comfortable zone of the jail. Right. So the story here, the Torah asks to repeat the Meiri said, to make sure that he is total stable and sincere about that decision to remain a slave. אמר בתחילת 6 ולא אמר בסוף 6, אינו ירצה, שנאמר לו יוצא חופשי, עד שיאמר בשעת יציאה. He need to say it at the time of departure, meaning the completion of the 6 years. If he said it earlier, it's not. Meaning the idea of piercing the ear, which basically is more than a symbolic, is an act of showing slavery, showing that he is now a slave, not emancipated by any means, has to be at the time of the completion, which is the end of the 6th year. אמר בסוף 6 ולא אמר תחילת 6, אינו נרצה. שנאמר אם אמור יאמר העבד עד שיאמר כשהוא עבד. Meaning, again, the other way around. If you said it at the end of the 6 years and not earlier, so again, it's not. So it has to be a statement, the beginning of the 6th, when he's still a slave, and by the end of the 6th, when he's about to leave, but it's in a repetition. אמר בתחילת 6 ולא אמר בסוף 6, אינו נרצה, שנאמר לו יוצא חופשי. מה יראה לו יוצא חופשי? I should not be freed. טיפוק לדבעינן, אהבתי את בני ואת אשתי ואת בניי, וליקה. He says, I love my wife, my children. Who was they? As you know, we explained many times, the Torah required the Canaanite maid servant, that the master give it to him. Can be for the purpose of more slaves, like children's, etc., etc. I always like to use the comparison of the era of slavery. You read the American history. So those masters sometimes have the slave married in order to have the children to increase the slavery, to have more people who slave. Beleika. So because the beginning of the slavery, he doesn't have children. ו-2, אמר בסוף 6 ולא אמר בתחילת 6 שאינו נרצה, שנאמר העבד, if he said at the beginning of the 6 years and at the end, so he's not piercing. עד הוא בסוף 6 לעבד הוא. Which means the last day of the slavery, he's still a slave. אמר רבא בתחילת פרוטה האחרונה. Meaning, the very last payment that they have a value of פרוטה, which is the minimum. בסוף פרוטה האחרונה, that's the end of the 6 years. תנו רבנן, לא אישה ובנים, לרבו אישה ובנים אינו נרצה. If the slave have wife and children, meaning the master gave him a Canaanite maid servant, and she have children with him, so it means that he have a Canaanite servants, male servants, and his master did not have wife and children, so he's not piercing. שנאמר כי אהבך ואת ביתך, meaning he loved him and he loved his family. So Tosfot Rosh said he doesn't need to have sons, because the Mishnah in Yoma, if you remember page 20, said that that's the wife without sons. So לרבו אישה ובנים ולא אין אישה ובנים. If the master have a wife and children and he, the slave, doesn't have, אינו נרצה, is not piercing. שנאמר אהבתי את אדוני ואת אשתי ואת בניי, Torah said I love my master, my wife and children, או הוא אוהב את רבו ורבו אינו אוהבו. He love his master and the master not. אינו נרצה, שנאמר כי טוב לו עמך, meaning part of the condition, he needs to be he feel loved, he feel needed. רבו אהבו ואינו אוהב את רבו אינו נרצה, שנאמר כי אהבך. His master love him and he's not, again, it's not. So you see here the dynamics that has to be mutual love between parties. That's part of the condition to stay slave. הוא חולה ורבו אינו חולה אינו נרצה, שנאמר כי טוב לו עמך. If he is sick, he's ill, and his master not, is not going to, that's imach, that he feel comfortable. רבו חולה ואינו חולה אינו נרצה, שנאמר imach. The same apply the other way around, if the master is sick and he's not. באי רביבי בר אביי, שניהם חולים מאי. If both of them are ill, so how you treat it? If both of them are ill, do you require imach ba'inam va'ika? Or dilma ki tov lo imach ba'in va'eleka teiko? So he left unsolved. Tanu Rabbanan. Ki tov lo imach. What does that mean that he's comfortable with you? Imach b'machal, which means that you eat the same food. You don't denigrate his food because he's slave, right? Imach b'mishteh, you drink the same. Shlo tiheh ata ochel pat nigev ochel pat kivar. You don't eat whole wheat, high quality bread, right? And he eats white flour, low level bread, right? Just an example. You eat all high quality, expensive wine. He drink brand new wine. You sleep on a comfortable mattress with pillows and everything, and he sleep on the floor, right? Those days it was like a straw. From here we derive, like Tosfot tells us in the previous page, that someone who purchased a Hebrew slave is considered like he acquired a master for himself, because he must be careful that the slave's living conditions are equal to his own, which it's a lot. So the Meiri explained in the previous page 20 that that's not a total obligation. The only is derivative from the Torah. They say that that's the proper manner, that's the proper trade, the proper way to behave, that you have a fellow Jew, you have him as a slave for all kind of reasons, can be because he steals money, can be because he is in such a press for fun, but still he's a fellow Jew, and you cannot treat it in a denigrated way. You have to treat him in a respectful way. So therefore, the Torah teaches us that that's the proper way to treat him. That's the way Meiri said. Marry all that is not total obligation. Anyway, תנו רבנן. ויצא ממך הוא בניו אמו, אמר רבי שמעון, אם הוא נמכר בניו ונתם נמכרים, מכאן שרבו חייב מזונות בניו. It says, the moment he released, so he and his family, what does that mean? The family is not slaves. He said, that shows that the master obligated also to take care of the sons, as long as, or children, as long as that fellow is his slave. The same the Torah said if he's married, his wife released when he released. You mean to say when he was, it's like my friend, I have a friend, he interviewed for a rabbinical job. So he came before the committee liked him. So then they make a Sunday brunch. It was gehört. So they have the Sunday brunch, and one of the people stood up and said, we'll see your wife. We'd like to know what your wife, the Rebbetzin, is going to do for our community. Mm-hmm. And the guy, without moving in a second, he says, ladies and gentlemen, if we're going to make a deal, you're going to sign a contract with me, not with my wife, not with my family. And therefore, if she voluntarily does things for the community, it's very nice, but by the contract, I'm the only one who obligated to serve this community. I always said it about the late Rebbetzin Rosenblatt. She gave this community 64 years of her life, but, other Rebbetzin doesn't need to pay the price. I talked to my predecessor's wife, and she said that she struggled with that for a long time because the Rebbetzin set up a certain expectations, and she did it only as a volunteer for 64 years. And people think that that's part of the rabbi's obligation, and it's not. Anyway, so here you see, מכאן שרבו חייב במזונות אשתו. For here you see that his master, even the Torah did not said that he have the obligation to do it, but the idea is the Ritva Another said that that's the manner of which people behave. You take care of the person, take care of his family. הוא צריך עד ישמין בנה משום דלא בני למעבד מחנינו, אבל אשתו דבת מיכל ומעבד היא אימת העביד ותחול. וישמין לאשתו דלא דירקה להדורי. It's embarrassing for her to go out and collect fun. אבל בניו דדיכאו להדורי הם לא צריכה. So then you need תנו רבנן. So they said that the master need to take the martzea, the awl, and need to pierce in his ear. So the sages taught. page 22, באילו נאמר לה אוזנו בדלת, הייתי אומר ידקור כנגד אוזנו בדלת, דלת אין אוזנו לא. So it means that he go the ear into the door. So the door, yes, but the ear itself, no. It should not be pierced. So they said, והכתיב ורצה אדוניו אוזנו במרצע. The Torah said clearly that the master shall pierce his ear with an awl. אלא הייתי אומר, יצאנה לאוזן מעברי. So I explained in my book, Rashi here, said, כלומר רחוק מן הדלת, כי דכתיב את אוזנו. מעברי, meaning מבחוץ, it's for outside. So that it means, the way I understand, I elaborate here, but it means that it was a distance from the door. מבחוץ is the distance.
So he didn't put his ear right up against
right,
the doorpost.
Right. I think that's what Rashi meant in the Klomar. Anyway, you're welcome to it. So they said, אלא הייתי אומר יצאן לאוזן מעברי, וינחן על הדלת וידקור כנגד אוזנו בדלת. תלמוד לומר באוזנו בדלת, הכיצד דוקר והולך שמגיע אצל הדלת. So obviously, as you said, he bore through the ear until it reaches the door. But you should know, it's not necessarily involved with pain. You know, it's the part that it's... Anyway, דלת שומע אני בין עקורה בין שינה עקורה. תלמוד לומר המזוזה, how do you know that the door has to be attached? So מה מזוזה מועמד, אבל דלת מועמד. You have to learn from the מזוזה, the same as the doorpost is upright, so the door must be upright and attached to the doorpost. You see here all the specification. רבי יוחנן בן זכאי היה דורש את המקרא הזה כמין חומר. So it was like a decorative wrap. מה נשנה האוזן מכל איברים שבגוף? What's the difference? Like allegory. What's the difference between the ear and all the other part of the body? אמר הקדוש ברוך הוא אוזן שמע כל יער סיני בשעה שאמרתי כי לבני ישראל עבדים לא עבדים לעבדים והלך זה וקנה אדון לעצמו ירצה. The Torah said, wait, God told us clearly that you will be the servant of me. So therefore you're not a servant of a servant. And this guy decided to be a servant of a servant. Okay, so let him ear be pierced. So because the ear is the ear that heard the statement from God. רבי שמעון ברבי היה דורש את המקרא הזה כמין חומר, מה לשלול מזוזה מכל כלים שבבית? Why they chose this doorpost more than the other, all the part of the house? He said, אמר הקדוש ברוך הוא, God said, דלת ומזוזה שהיו יודעים במצרים בשעה שפסחתי למשקו ולשתי המזוזות, we're getting close to Pesach. This doorpost that they said when it come to Egypt, the witness of the Egypt, when I passed over into the two doorposts, בשעה שפסחתי למשקו ולשתי המזוזות, ואמרתי כי לבני ישראל עבדים ולא עבדים לעבדים, והוצאתי מעבדו לחירות. I was the one told the miracle of Pesach, right? that bring him from slavery to freedom. And this guy, instead of staying free, he went and acquired a master for himself, exceeded more than needed, right? For example, the guy stole, he have no money, so he sold as a Hebrew servant. He served the master for 6 years. Enough, get out. And he decided to stay in that position of slavery. Therefore, let him be pierced before them, and they are witness that he violated God's will. Mishnah. Now we talk about acquisition when it's come to Hebrew servant, because so far we talk about Canaanite servant, right? A person can purchase those type of slave and it's part of his estate. So the way they do it, in those days they do it either by money or by document or by chazaka, and taking possession. And he can be acquire himself, which means his freedom, בכסף, by mean of money, על ידי אחרים, ובשטר על ידי עצמו, mean of money by others, which means other people can give money to his master, or בשטר, the documentation, bill of emancipation, be free by himself. דברי רב מאיר, חמורים בכסף על ידי עצמו, ובשטר על ידי אחרים. The other way. Money by himself, documentation by others, ובלבד שיהיה הכסף של אחרים. As long as the money that he give belongs to other people, not by him, because he cannot have his own, right? And because the slave cannot purchase property. So anything he owns it belongs to his master. מנהלה, how do you know? תכתיב, והתנחלתם אותם לבדכם אחריהם לרשת אחוזה. גישה כתוב בחזה אחוזה, because the Torah speaks about the field, and in the field, they said that you shall bequeath them to your children by ancestor inheritance. So you use the juxtaposition in the same term. The same way as the field. Be acquired by means of money, document, and by taking possession. The same way apply to a slave. You can say the same way as the field return to its owner by the Jubilee year. The same applied to Canaanite slave. They said no, Canaanite slave is exception because Leviticus 25 said that they will be slave forever. So it means that the sale is permanent. Tana av b'chalifin. So you said that another form of exchange, kinyan, is by chalifin. Chalifin meaning you exchange by change is like barter. You give me an item and I give you exchange another item. So they said Vetana didan, and here doesn't mention that exchange as part of the acquisition. You have to speak about something that applied to movable property. This is not part of movable property, so you didn't bother to mention that. You said the Canaanite slave can be acquired by pulling, we can be movable property. Takfo, ובא אצלו קנאו, קראו, בא אצלו לא קנאו. So depend how you did it. It's, for example, it's a pulling, or right? So that's the way. Which means that it have to be, when it's come to barter, it has to be this idea of movable property. But the other one, we can speak about kinyan mishicha, the pulling. You have to speak about something that applies to both movable and immovable object. Mishicha, when it's come to kinyan mishicha, pulling, that applies solely for what? For something that's movable, versus that it's land that it's not transferred because it's not movable. So therefore, the Tana is not speaking about lokatana, is not bothered to speak about something ownership of land because it's stable, it's not movable. So now Gemara analyze the next thing. Kitzad, how when it's come to acquiring a slave, how you do it through pulling? Kafo uba etzlo, knao, krao, uba etzlo lo knao. So you have to know if the force and he came to him, so acquire. But he called him, he came to him, etc. It's not. Ukrao lo vatanya kitzad b'msira. So they said that how you do it toward the passing. So when it's come to animal, if you do all these things with the animals, which is a hoof, grab by hair, by a saddle on him, load in him, bit, mouth, bell on his neck, So it's already matter of acquisition. It's all matter of transferring ownership. כיצד במשיכה, when it's come to pulling how, קורא לה והיא באה. He called the animal, come, 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 right? People does that with animal. And או שהקשה מקל ורצתה לפניו, or he hits with a stick and run before him. כיוון שהקרא יד וגרג יקנה, the moment that lift foreleg and a hind leg, so it acquires it. רבי אסי אמר אליו רבי יחם, אומר, עד שתלך לפניו ולא קומתה, until it pulls its height in the presence of its own, so here you see a clear indication that callings, it's an effective use of a mode of pulling. אמרה, במד עדת הדמרה אזלה, עבד עדת נפשה אזלה, you cannot compare, but animal is come because the master, the owner, right, it's his will to do it, versus a slave, he walks by his own will. עדת נפשה אזלה, אמר רב אשי, עבד קטן כבהמה דמי, it says that a slave who is a minor is considered like an animal, in the sense that he has no will on his own, so he doesn't have the decision making, so he can be acquired through calling. In that sense, the same as a regular animal. כיצד? תנו רבן כיצד בחזקה. How is the קניין חזקה there through a possession? התיר לו מן הלוב, הוליך אחריו כלים לבית המרחץ. So he removed the master's shoe, he carries his garment after him to the bathhouse. הפשיטו רחיצו שחור גרדו ילבשו הנה לא הגביעו קנאו. It's all a matter of acquisitions. You see, for example, scrub, dress him, put his shoes, etc. You remember the story in Yerushalmi about Rabbi Tarfon with his mother, that he, when she needs, he put himself and she step over his back in order to go to her bed, right? So you see all this form of serving. And the Meiri said that put him on the bed. So this shows slavery. That's kinyan chazaka according to the Rambam. אמר רבי שמעון לא תהיה חזקה גדולה מהגבהה, הגבהה קונה בכל מקום. So he said that this kinyan is not passed to the lifting, because the lifting property is in any situation make it happen. My kamar, so basically it's the opposite. אמר רב אשי, הגביעו הוא לרבו קנאו, הגביעו רבו לא קנאו, so it has to be him to his master, but not the other way around. So because that's the derech הגבהה, that's the movable object, that's the way to do it. אמר רבי שמעון לא תהיה חזקה גדולה גמרא, שהגבהה קונה בכל מקום. You cannot treat it the grabbing position to lifting, because lifting acquire property in any situation. So one acquire a slave even by lifting him. It's a question of Meir Arik deal here. How exactly that matter of acquisition hold? Anyway, השא דקאמר הגביעו לרבו קנאו, אלא מתי שכחה קטנית תקנה בביאה. So how the Canaanite maid servant, that's part of the idea that someone who's pasul, for example, mamzer, natin, etc., they married her, not a regular one that cannot marry her. So how, when it's a matter of cohabitation, how she acquires? So he said, which means that here we talk about the master, that the slave feel bad. You know, he basically, in the modern days, you can call it even a form of abuse, but in those days, it's a part of slavery, that he step over his back, he lifting up, he doing all these things that doesn't bring the slave any joy for doing so for his master, right? But here, both the maid and the one required have the joy of that. So they ask a question, Shelo kedarka, which means that's the story of Dinah, the Bereshit 34, explain that there is the matter of a, how do you call it, anal? Whatever it's called, that is not a matter of normal cohabitation. So they said, Ma'i kalemeima. So it's not a matter of any joy by the maid. How do you know that she doesn't have a pleasant with that? The Torah used when it's come to relation, they use the plural, mishkevei, in the plural manner. So when it's come, for example, if someone violated an arayot, have cohabitation with something that's prohibited to him, like family, etc., etc. So the Torah using a plural term. So plural term, it means that it's a possibility for the other way. So the pasuk speak about both relation, that it's in a regular way or not. So anyway, so that's the argument. Rabbi Hindua, so that's a location in a place called Hindua. You have a convert that doesn't have anybody in the family that can inherit him. Chalash, so Rabbi Yehuda was weak. Now the question is here. Okay, you have this convert, have no others, and Rabbi Yehuda is weak. Al Mazuda Shalulebei, so Mazuda come and ask him, Chazet Takfel Al Matuva. He saw that he is getting close to the end of his life. Amar Lev Leshlof Mesane Bamtinu Lebeita. take off my shoe and bring it to the house. So that means that he is serving his master at that very time. So there's a book called Kovetz Shiurim. You deal with this question, what exactly you have the transfer of ownership? Because let's face it, the moment that the master is done, so he can acquire, but the question is, on the process, when exactly they departed the servant from his master, so he can have a matter of acquisitions. Is that apply for the total, no longer any pulse, or the moment he's close to his end, it's already over? So soon you see, for example, cases like the several people that wants to get the leftover ownerless estate, like the convert, how you treat it. Anyway, Ika Damri, Gadol Ava, so it's already mature adult. Based on that, by the way, we don't have time, but there's a book called Mishneh Lemelech and others have a discussion over Shabbat. If someone violated Shabbat and did some matter of acquisition, for example, Kinyan Agba, lifting up possessions, is that effective or not? Even if it was made on Shabbat. Is another question, the halacha, you see it a lot. Mishneh Lemelech and others, how you treated a regular employee. Here we talk about servants, Canaanite slave, Hebrew servant, etc. But how you treated the employer, basic on that. Do you have a matter of acquisition or not? How, especially when you have some form of collateral. So anyway, page 23, זה פירש למיתה וזה פירש לחיים. So one departed to death, and Mar Zutra departed for life by receiving a slave. ויקרא קטן הבא, ודלא כאש אבא שלו לתן הגר שמלו בזבזו ישראל נכסיו, והיו בהם עבדים. So he passed, he was a convert. So you have a servant, בין גדולים בין קטנים קנו עצמם נכורים. So they're free the moment he is gone, the master. אבל שהוא אומר, גדולים קנו את עצמם נכורים, קטנים כל המחזיק בהם זכה בהם. So if it's the adult, it's different. They can independent, but that the young, whoever take possession of them, acquires them. So therefore, according to Abba Shaul, Mar Zutra did not have the hasten to acquire the slave during the Rabbi Yehuda's lifetime, because the slave will acquire himself. He could have waited until Rabbi Yehuda died before acquiring the slave. So there's a book called Ktsot HaChoshen, and Ktsot HaChoshen you deal with about the situation that the convert borrow money and give a collateral, and he pass. So basically the question is, since he passed and he have no heir, how you treat it now? So when it's come to the loan, we understand that the lender deserved back the loan he gave him. But how you treated the collateral? What is the framework of collateral? The Ktsot HaChoshen asks. If you tell me the collateral is part of what he owe him, the answer is not, because it's a collateral. On the other hand, the moment that he passed and is no heir, so it's turned to be ownerless. So does that mean that the lender has more right than other people over the collateral? The Ktsot HaChoshen argued and said yes, because nobody else have any ownership, Zippo. This fellow, he was his lender, so he was in a communication and help him. So therefore, in that sense, he have the first right to possess, including the collateral that is not part of the money he borrowed from him.